Could you turn the mic on? Eric, can you turn the mic on?
Next.
Haribol. Okay. Haribol. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Binhari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Binhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaladadi Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaladadi Shodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaladari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaladari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda, Radhe Radhe. Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Gora Haribo, 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 Nita Gora Haribo. Hare Krishna. Today we're discussing from Bhagavad Gita 1836. So where the Lord begins his explanation of 3 types of happiness. This is an essential section of Bhagavad Gita as it helps us to understand why, the different people pursue different kinds of pleasure and how to get beyond temporary happiness and achieve basically true eternal bliss, Krishna consciousness, basically. So I'll recite the verse myself and then we'll go line by line. Sukham tu idinam trividyam shunu me bharat sabha abhyatsa dramate yatra dukha katham cha nigachati. Excuse my pronunciation if I'm butchering this beautiful language. Excuse me. Okay, after me. Sukham tu idinam trividyam shunu me bharat sabha abhyatse ramate yatra dukantam cha nachachati. Now, anyone like to recite? Mother? Okay, word for word after me. Sukham, happiness. Tu, but. Idinam, now. Trividham, of three kinds of happiness. Shunu, here. Me, from. Bharata rasabha, oh best among the Bharatas. Abhyasat, by practice. Ramate, one who enjoys. Yatra, where. Dukkha, of distress. Antam, the end. Cha, also. Nigachati, gains. So translation. O best of the Bharatas, now please hear from me about the three kinds of happiness, by which the conditioned soul enjoys, and by which sometimes he comes to the end of all distress. So purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. A conditioned soul tries to enjoy material happiness again and again, and thus he chews the chewed. But sometimes in the course of such enjoyment, he becomes relieved by material entanglement, by association with a great soul. In other words, a conditioned soul is always engaged in some type of sense gratification. But when he understands by good association that is only a repetition of the same thing, and he is awakened to his real Krishna consciousness, he is sometimes relieved from such repetitive so-called happiness. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jananjana-salakaya Shakshula-militam jena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Bhastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gada Shivasade Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. This is my first Gita class, so please bear with us. And my health isn't like too up to scratch, so I'll try to do my best in it. Okay, we'll talk about the essence of this verse. Basically, Krishna is saying that basically happiness is not a singular thing, that it comes with three varieties. And those varieties are in the three modes. So sattvic, so you got the mode of goodness; rajasic, the mode of passion; and tamasic, the mode of ignorance. Ultimately, all three kinds of happiness is not the same. Some kinds of happiness lead to further bondage, and while others lead to liberation. One can only be truly happy when they're serving Krishna. So ultimately, of the three kinds of happiness within the modes, there's not proper happiness unless it's in the mood of serving Krishna. So in the coming verses we'll discuss, but we won't discuss now. Krishna is preparing us by stating that real happiness should bring us to the end of all suffering. Dukratam, as we states in the verse. A real happiness should be practiced, abhyasat, in a disciplined way. And basically what Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport is basically a conditioned soul is constantly seeking happiness and in the material world, but due to ignorance, like most people, we repeatedly become entangled, forgetting our true position as eternal servitors to Krishna, because we want to serve ourselves basically without Krishna. And because real happiness, it actually comes from being in Krishna consciousness and engaged in devotional service, and not just like seeking outward happiness for ourselves basically. So we often think happiness is just about feeling good, but Krishna is telling us that there are different kinds of happiness. Some pleasures give us joy temporarily, but lead to suffering later, and some, though difficult at first, ultimately bring us true satisfaction. So we have this example of like a student studying late at night for an exam. At the moment, it seems painful, but later on, once all the work's done, it pays off in it. You feel good in it. So see, that's a real happiness. May take effort at first, but leads to true end of suffering. And also, Srila Prabhupada gives this nice example as well of a thirsty man in the desert. So when he sees the oasis in the distance, he'll run to it, but it turns out to be a mirage. So like this is just an illusion in his mind. And this is how happiness works. Basically, it looks promising, but when we get to it, it doesn't satisfy us. Krishna is teaching us how to find the real oasis, the happiness that never fades, ultimately. So basically, I think that all of us, like even in the past or now, are still, to some extent, looking for material happiness or enjoyment, some game and material possessions or satisfaction in life, you know what I mean? And sure, there is some degree of happiness there, in these things, but also there is a lot of pain, frustration, and suffering ultimately. That's because material happiness is always mixed with dissatisfaction and unavoidable miseries in the material world. So you see, as a spirit soul, what really gives us true happiness and satisfaction is what? What would you say? Anyone? What gives us true happiness and satisfaction? As a spirit soul. Yes, service to Krishna soul, service to Krishna ultimately, because that's the true nature, isn't it? So it's not by working, making money, trying to gather as many things as possible, trying to hold these things, material stuff ultimately, or families or friends, or in hopes of sharing some minute pleasures, that the soul feel real fulfillment in serving Krishna ultimately. So these efforts might give us some satisfaction to the senses and the mind, but like feeding the tongue with tasty food, or like touching something soft, or like watching TV, Netflix, whatever you're doing, stimulate the emotions and that. But these pleasures are ultimately they're temporary and only engage the body and the body and the senses, not the soul. And as Srila Prabhupada states in chapter 5, verse 22 of the Gita, it says, an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses, O son of Kunti. Such pleasures have beginning and end, and such a wise man does not delight in them. So basically, all these material pleasures, they all have beginning and end, but what pleasure does not have an end? The pleasure of serving Krishna. So like here it says, even when there is some temporary happiness, it is bound up by suffering, like a sugar-coated poison. So even the intellect can be stimulated by reading or learning, and the mind might feel like some sort of satisfaction ultimately in certain experiences, but ultimately the soul won't be satisfied by any of these things. Why? Because it's not a nature of the soul to find fulfillment through this matter. So even though the senses and the mind and the intellect get some stimulation, the soul still remains in touch by all this. Why is that? Because the soul is covered by layers. like the invisible shields and conceptions of reality that filter, we experience life. In the Vedic tradition, they're called Panchakoshas. Has anyone heard of the Panchakosha system? These layers, basically like an onion has layers, the human being has layers, the human of material existence have layers, and it covers basically our experience like of who we really are. Yeah, the layers of consciousness basically that determine who we are. Can anyone tell me what these layers are? The five layers. Panchakosha. Anyone? The first one, Anandamaya Kosha. Anandamaya Kosha. We've done this in class. Come on, you know it. So we have Anandamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, and then we have Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. So basically the first layer is what's called the food layer of this consciousness that we have. So this is the most basic level we have. So where consciousness resolves around eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So ultimately all beings on earth have this layer, isn't it? Not just human beings. So it's purely physical, linked to like sense objects, bodily urges. So it's pretty much just animalistic consciousness. But what's the issue here in this layer? It's temporary again, so there's no satisfaction or security here, is there? The next layer is Pranamaya Kosha. This is what's called the energy or protection layer. This layer resolves around security, territory, and survival. So here we live like polished animals, basically, chasing money, building empires, like seeking status, that kind of stuff. But again, there's an issue here as well. Constant fear, the fear of what we have, our anxieties, and what we don't have. And then number 3, Anomaya Kosha, which is the mind layer. So here we seek beauty, culture, creativity, arts, like the basic stuffs which human beings do, isn't it? That makes us different to other animals, I guess. But again, the issue again here is, what is the source of this beauty ultimately? What lies behind it? There's curiosity, but there's still something covering that, isn't it? And then number 4, we have Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intelligence layer. So basically, as human beings, we seek knowledge, science, and then we try to understand the laws of nature, the mechanics of the universe, all that kind of stuff. Because we have that higher understanding, that awareness, and that also the deeper awareness of like the fabric of the material world. But again, there's still an issue. What is this issue? There's something missing. That misses what? Constant bliss, or the purpose isn't found just by understanding how things work. You see, there's a constant cycle here as well. And then we have Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss layer. This is the goal of life. This layer is the closest to the soul. This is the layer that we want to get out to, basically. We want to chip away all those layers, so we just have this layer, isn't it? And when we get to this layer, one realizes my aim is not food, money, beauty, or secrets, but my aim is unalloyed happiness and eternal satisfaction. And this is only possible when what? When we're connected to Krishna, when we're serving Krishna ultimately. Like it says in the Chaturveda Upanishad, Raso Vaisa, which means he is a reservoir of all pleasure. So you can't go wrong with that, can you? You can't. Krishna's a reservoir of all pleasure. So also with this, the Panchakosha system, I might have stolen a nice analogy off someone in a class I've heard. Basically, it's a nice analogy. Basically, it's going through my explanation. I've kind of like cleaned up a bit, and it's adding basically of a drowning man, an analogy of a drowning man, to see how like these Panchakoshas actually like play out in real life. So basically, imagine this material world is a vast ocean, an endless ocean, and in that ocean there are different types of people, and in each different situation representing the stages of the Panchakosha system. So there's there's a different stage within this ocean, representing the different layer of the Panchakosha. So in the Anandamaya consciousness is basically the drowning man. So first, the drowning person. What's the only thing a drowning person thinks about ultimately? What is it? If you're drowning, what do you think about? Yeah, just getting there, trying to breathe, isn't it? That's it. So you're not trying to like contemplate life, and like you're not trying like hand them a Gita or anything, are you? You're trying to like You're trying to absorb in that fact that, like, I want air, isn't it? So ultimately, this is anamaya consciousness, the identification with the body and nothing beyond it. So many people live here, isn't it? They're struggling, barely staying afloat in the material ocean. If you think about it, it's quite sad, isn't it? You see so many people in this state. And then we have the swimming man in the ocean. This is pranamaya consciousness. So you imagine someone who's no longer drowning, but he's swimming. He's one up from the other person. So this is pranamaya consciousness. This person has enough stability to enjoy life a little bit, because he's got a little bit more of awareness. But the problem is you get tired, isn't it, when you start swimming? So in the ocean doesn't last forever either. So eventually you get tired, and you risk going under again, like the first person, isn't it? So this cycle of passion, ignorance, sometimes it's high and sometimes it's low. There's activity and ambition but there's no foundations that are ultimately, again, because when it's level you can go down again, so you've got to be careful. And you have the person who's on the raft, which is manomaya consciousness. This person is someone who's on a raft and finds a raft, basically. There's solid support and stability in the water, or in the life, you could say. This person is now in manomaya consciousness. They're not just reacting to the survival or trying to enjoy anymore. Now they have time to think, isn't it? So on the raft, you have time to contemplate, isn't it, in life? So you kind of think you're in a safe spot in life now, because you're on this kind of like raft, this support, and you can kind of like ask these questions like, where am I going? Like, what is this philosophy, dharma, deep insight, and like introspection, like who you are ultimately. But ultimately, this person might read the Gita and actually reflect on it, but they're not fully safe yet. Why is that? Because they're grounded enough to start. Oh, they're not fully safe yet, but they are grounded enough to start asking the real questions, but they don't have that proper foundation yet. And then we have the navigator. So the raft person finds you could say a compass and starts navigating. And they might have a map, say the scriptures, and they've understood the purpose of life, and now they're actually heading toward the shore. This is Vijnanamaya consciousness. This is the spiritual intelligence. The intelligence to discriminate from like matter and spirit, you could say, in the material world. He has direction, is discrimination. So they may still be in the material ocean, but they ultimately know where they're going. So like, I'm in the material world, but I know like my destination is to go back to Krishna, back to Godhead, isn't it? So they're no longer aimlessly drifting in the ocean. They have this set in stone plan, like most of us Vaishnavas have, and they've internalized knowledge, and they're moving toward transcendence, which is this is a steady layer. This is. And then we have the landed soul, so anamaya consciousness. So you reach the shore and you're basically stepping onto land. It's beautiful, you know. This is kind of symbolizing spiritual life when you kind of like connected with Krishna and his eternal realm, isn't it? So this anamaya consciousness, so this realization of the self as eternal servant of Krishna, and you're in full bliss and knowledge of Krishna. So basically, you've gone through all these coverings, and now you're experiencing ultimately the soul's natural joy in loving devotion. So again, after this, you may be asking what happens next, isn't it? You can look back at the ocean and you can see others, the drowning man, the swimmer, the ones still on a raft, and naturally the compassion awakens, isn't it? You want to help, isn't it? Ultimately, you want to help. Because you have all this knowledge, isn't it? Now you face the choice. What is that choice? You can run and call to help, or you can jump back in and try and save others. You can jump back in and try and save others, and try and save them, basically. But if you jump in without preparation, like Srila Prabhupada said, you can't save a drowning man unless what? You can't swim yourself. So you need to be careful, isn't it? Because first you have to be fully situated in yourself before we can then preach to others and spread this knowledge ultimately. Or else it can get messy and people get the wrong view on what all this is about, isn't it? Like you see many persons try to help others prematurely, but often they get caught in like the same cycle, isn't it? I've had this, especially in my first, before I came to KC as well. So you see like this true spiritual compassion comes from after realization, after you've had these realization layers, isn't it? From the platform of Ananda Maya, where you can serve as a lighthouse, not just a fellow swimmer. So what's the takeaway ultimately from this? It's basically, only when we reach the blissful state of Ananda Maya, anchored in Krishna consciousness, we can effectively help others with getting entangled without getting entangled ourselves. And as Srila Prabhupada often said, first become perfect, then preach. So know the stuff, then preach, isn't it? So just like travelers in a vast ocean, souls journey through different stages of consciousness. Some are drowning, absorbed only in survival. Some are swimming, enjoying but exhausting themselves. Others have found a raft, a stable foundation through thought and inquiry, manomaya. A few are navigating using knowledge to move towards a real purpose. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanumana Ki Gora Nitaya Ki Jai. And a few are navigating using knowledge to move forward for a real purpose. But ultimately we see that it's a rare soul that finally reaches the shore, isn't it? And standing on that solid ground, seeing the city with spiritual bliss ahead, this is Anandamaya, the soul connected with Krishna. And ultimately, out of the rare souls who reach the shore, is these rare souls that then go on to share this knowledge, who are prepared to share this knowledge. Just like Srila Prabhupada, isn't it? These rare acharyas that come to share this knowledge. Because they've understood this knowledge, ultimately, to the fullest. Then again, the journey is about self-liberation. Like they say, Vaishnavas are more interested in liberation, isn't it? From the shore. But we look back and feel compassion for the drowning man. Like I remember before in Sankirtan, I was speaking to one of the senior monks, and I was saying like, this place is full of Maya, and he's saying like, no, it isn't full of Maya, you're in Maya. He said, you're Vaishnava, you should feel, your heart should be paining for these people trapped, to help them, kind of thing. That's the kind of mood we should have, isn't it? It's compassion for the drowning people, ultimately. Not just say, oh, they're in Maya, all this stuff. No, we should compassion for the fellow soul, isn't it? So we see ultimately from the outermost, the innermost layer, people are trying to find happiness, but the soul in connection with Krishna can truly experience it. That's why even after all money, knowledge, beauty, there is still feeling of what I want more, or what something is missing. And ultimately, who can fulfill that need? Krishna. So real happiness comes from when consciousness is fully developed and blossomed like a flower and turned toward Krishna. Okay, I have something else good for you as well. Yeah. So basically, we've gone through these different layers, the soul's journey through these different layers of consciousness. And you might be wondering what what can I do right now to how can I move towards this Anandamaya consciousness flat platform of this soul level of happiness, basically. So I got a little what is it where Keshav Maharaj uses, where the first letter of each word? What's it called? Acronym. I'm going a bit Keshav Maharaj on you. Okay, this is called Spark. I may have stole it from a Bhagavatam class off of Mataji, but hey ho, the best people steal, isn't it? So here we go. It's called Spark. You might want to note this one down as a good one. So we have S, which is what? Self-improvement and service. So what's something in your life that you know isn't helping your Krishna consciousness? So basically, like you've got a habit or something, or a distraction, basically an unhealthy mindset, and you're just trying to work on it, basically. Just have that in mind. And also, what else you want to know is, what do you love doing for Krishna? What's that something like individual in yourself that you love doing for Krishna? So it could be like kirtan, reading, clean temple, distributing prasadam. It's like when you join the ashram, they were saying in the first 5 years, try out different things in the ashram. So maybe Sankirtan, I don't know, distributing prasadam, classes, all different kind of stuff. And then you basically see what fits you, what goes with your soul, what's your soul's calling, and then you stick with that basically. Because if you stick with something that doesn't call to your soul, there's no point in doing it, because you're not going to flourish in it ultimately. So do your natural service and then lead towards it. So this is S, self-improvement and service. This is how we can begin to align our eternal life with our eternal identity as Krishna's servant. And then we have P. So S, we've had S, now we've got P. Purpose and passion. So ultimately, what gives you the energy in spiritual life? What gives you that drive, that buzz? Like what makes you get up for Mangalarti in the morning? I don't know what gets me up, I'll tell you. I'm just still trying to find out, I think. Okay, so yeah, exactly. What makes you feel alive when it's connected to Krishna? I think as well, since doing Bhakti Shastri here, the main thing that keeps you going is having that something, why am I here kind of thing? What makes you driven to like I said, wake up for Mangalarti in the morning? And when you feel bogged down and you're like, why am I feeling like this? And you're like, oh yeah, that's Krishna. So like here they say with Srila Prabhupada found his purpose to fulfill his instruction of his spiritual master, and even though he faced so many obstacles, like we all know his trip to America, isn't it? Was it 2 heart attacks on the Jaladuta and all that stuff? He still paved way, isn't it? He still fulfilled his spiritual master's orders, isn't it? At the end of the day, because he knew what drove him in his spiritual life ultimately. So we need to find these things that basically lights your heart in your devotional service. Because if you don't have that behind your devotional service, your devotional service becomes what? Just service. There's no devotion. So there's no point doing it at the end of the day. You can do it, but there's no Krishna. And we want Krishna, isn't it? So we become selfish. And we want something that's of service. And then we have A. So we have spark, S, P, and now we've got A. A is what? Alignment and action. So we don't just want to act, we want to act with awareness. So basically, are you doing your service that aligns with your nature, or are you just copying others that are doing? So Krishna says in 1847 of the Bhagavad Gita, it says, better to do one's own duty imperfectly than another's duty perfectly. So basically, do what your own nature is. Don't, like Srila Prabhupada, don't imitate these like advanced devotees. Don't go out doing 64 rounds and then you put off afterwards and like, I'm not doing another round ever again in my life. No, just do what you're ready to do, kind of thing. I remember when I first started, I wasn't following the 4 regs, so then I was just doing like 4 rounds a day, and then gradually building up, and then you start, all these stuff drop off, and then you start to actually follow the stuff properly. Because like all these things, like Jadveya Maharaj, I heard in a lecture once, he says like, once you have a solid sadhana, and you're doing your japas good and all that stuff, and then this stuff comes out in the wash, isn't it? And then you can find that you have that impetus then to find where your nature is, because all that stuff's gone. And you're not anxious, or like, you know, you have a clear mind, isn't it? So basically, instead of comparing, just start. Don't overthink. Just do what you can for Krishna, I guess. And then reflect in relationship. Oh, Krishna time. A reflecting relationship. So bhakti isn't about ticking off a list, it's about relationships. Kesha Maharaj says the main thing in Krishna consciousness is what? Relationships. Relationships. It was a key thing is being a Vaishnava is what? We're going to help other Vaishnavas at the end of the day. Well, so if we're on our own and we're just going to fall down, isn't it? We need these other devotees to keep us going ultimately. Because you can't just speak Krishna Katha to yourself. You need someone to speak it to and speak it with and share it ultimately. So I know it here, like, take time to ask yourself these questions. Am I connected with Krishna today? Am I remembered him as a person? And ultimately, am I real in my devotional practice? Because basically the relationship deepens not through performance, but through honest reflection and heartfelt service. And K is what? K. It's easy. Krishna, that's it. Krishna is the goal, So, whether you're mopping the temple floor, that's my favorite service, temple cleaning. Good service. I don't know, taking care of your children, doing japa, ultimately is what? The goal is to bring it in Krishna. I'll bring it to Krishna, rather. The joy is knowing He is at the center of everything that we do, ultimately, isn't it? So here we go. Like so many times you say, I'm going to start chanting more, I'll get serious next week. No. But Krishna isn't looking for, we just want to focus on Bhakti. Krishna isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for a sincere soul at the end of the day. So we just do what you can ultimately. If you can't follow the 4 regs or anything like that, just start doing a few rounds and just be sincere, isn't it? And it's like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Pacham, Pusham, Phalam, Toyam, like just those often with a leaf, a flower, and a handful of water, just I'll accept it as long as what? You're sincere, ultimately, isn't it? So this is exactly why, after exploring all these layers and even reaching the most refined levels of thinking, like the soul is still searching, isn't it? We see. And the only thing that truly gives us pleasure and satisfaction to the soul is what? Love. And where do we find that real love? Where do we find that love? In Krishna. Service to Krishna ultimately. And service to others connected to Krishna. Because you can serve Krishna, but what's better than serving Krishna? Serving His devotees. Yes. So like Vaishnavas in the spiritual master, that's what we do, isn't it? So with the material world, we often speak of service in terms of business. My company provides like this to this company, sort of like, and there's like kind of like transaction kind of thing. I'll do this for profit and deals, like material motives and all that kind of stuff. But that kind of service isn't service. It's just for material gain, isn't it? So real love means doing something for someone else's good, for the pleasure and happiness, for their pleasure and happiness, but without any personal motivation. That's ultimate service at the end of the day. So as soon as there's self-motive behind an action, it becomes a transaction, like a business deal. And there's no service there. It's just doing another deed. And the soul will never be satisfied by that kind of a exchange from one's view. And then because it's talking about the 3 kinds of happiness, we'll touch on the 3 kinds of happiness. We start what? The 3 modes. Can anyone tell me the 3 modes? Goodness, passion, ignorance, that's it. Joy. So we're talking happiness within the mode. So basically, happiness in the mode of ignorance basically isn't happiness at all. It's just suffering. That's mistakes for pleasure due to covering the influence of ignorance. Basically, you take an example of someone who smokes cigarettes. Basically, they're enjoying it, but they're not really enjoying what they're smoking, are they? Because they're just smoking a cigarette. They're just burning themselves, burning their lungs ultimately. So they're sacrificing small pain. So they're using a small pain at the end of the day to cover the big pain. The big pain of the heart, ultimately. So that's what happiness is and ignorance is, basically. Or like basically like alcoholics as well, when they drink, they don't just say, "Oh, I'm an alcoholic." There's an underlying problem, but then they're using this small like habit to mask the larger habit, isn't it? The larger issue. That's the mode of ignorance. Happiness is a mode of ignorance. It's not proper happiness. So there's happiness in the mode of passion. This type of happiness is very attractive in the beginning. Pleasure becomes quickly and feels intense. And a good example is basically when you start a romantic relationship, everything's good, lovey-dovey, and then ultimately it becomes bitter. You start quarreling, hating each other. So passion is basically, happiness in the mode of passion is basically is sweet, and then it's bitter in the end. It's like Srila Prabhupada states in the purport, or not in the purport, he explains in one of his talks, it says here, the amount of pleasure one takes in the material world, one will have to suffer the same amount in the future. Why is that? Because you're enjoying for yourself and not Krishna. There's no Krishna in that pleasure. And then we have happiness in the mode of goodness, which is completely opposite, you could say. So, like I said in the beginning, it requires effort, discipline, austerity, some sort of sacrifice has to be there, but gradually it becomes lasting peace and clarity. Still, even this happiness is material, isn't it? Because it's within the modes, so of course it has to be material. It may purify the mind and the body, but it still doesn't satisfy the soul. Why is that? Because the soul is not looking for goodness, it is looking for love. And that real love must be what? Krishna. And what platform Krishna on? A transcendental platform. So this real love must be transcendental. This must be a lasting love. Instead of this love within the modes that has also a beginning and an end. Even in the mode of goodness has a beginning and end, this love. But we want transcendental love. Without a beginning and end, but also connected to Krishna. So yes, we can find some love and emotional satisfaction in everyday life. So like friendships, these casual moments like going to walk or something, coffee or whatever. But these moments don't last ultimately. Like they will for a short while, and then ultimately you come down again. And you're unsatisfied, and then you're looking for the next thing. I see that on my own friend as well. Like this next, like what else can I do? Go on holiday, do this next. But like I said, material love is temporary, isn't it? We need to find something that's transcendental, that's beyond the modes and beyond this material world. But like I said, love that is connected to Krishna is what? Eternal. So if we keep practicing devotional service and sincerely trying to please Krishna by our efforts, there is no reason for this loving exchange to stop. It's quite beautiful, isn't it? So in fact, it won't stop, it will increase ultimately. Because what? Krishna is eternal. He's not just eternal, everything is connected to him. And everything else is eternal as well, because it's connected to him. So whereas everything material has a beginning and end, and usually has like a short lifespan, but when it's connected to Krishna, there's no limit. The quality of that love and happiness just keeps increasing. There's no stop to this love. That is real happiness. And then Srila Prabhupada mentions how the conditioned soul is always looking for some kind of sense gratification, isn't it? But this always ends in suffering. Why? Because when we're driven by personal desires and egotistic motives, we are what? Disconnected from our true nature. And then when we go down that path, we will become dissatisfied. I have something I've written down quite a while ago. I was going through the same, this is about a few years ago when I was starting to get my Krishna consciousness. And I felt like I was straying a bit. I remember I was coming back on the train from somewhere. And also, like, I did feel dissatisfied because I ultimately was connected to my true nature. But what came to my head was this. I thought it was pretty profound. I'm sure I don't know. Basically, when you're not thinking of Krishna, he's always thinking of you. And when you think you've forgotten Krishna, just know he hasn't forgotten you. I'd say that thought was the most Krishna-provoking moment I've ever had in my life, I'd say, ultimately. It's like he was just in my mind and like he's saying these words. That's still to say, I'd say it's the most profound moment I've had. But anyway, like I said, today, and even in today's though, we are chasing some sense gratification in one form or another, like work, money, possessions. But the more problems, more conflicts, more suffering, like it's just avoiding Krishna ultimately. But like chasing something which there's no end, going down like an endless pit ultimately. So real happiness comes not by talking, but by giving ultimately. Not by trying to enjoy for ourselves, but by thinking about the pleasure of others and ultimately Krishna. And so if our service brings benefit and joy to others in connection with Krishna, then what? That's the path to real peace and joy. Everything in life to become better, and the quality of our life increases naturally when we live in this spirit. Because we're serving Krishna. He doesn't want to serve Krishna. If you don't want to serve Krishna, get out. I'm joking. Krishna is not poor. He's basically saying, he's not asking his devotees or newcomers to Krishna consciousness to live in poverty or renounce everything and just go to the forest and just chant Hare Krishna and just try and focus on Krishna. No. You don't have to change your lifestyle or anything. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. You could do it at your home and anything. You can have kids and you don't have to be a fully fledged brahmachari. Just offer your prasadam, eat your way to Godhead and chant Hare Krishna and associate with the great devotees. That's all you need, isn't it? Just by adding Krishna to life, everything becomes sweeter, deeper, and more meaningful. So I'll give you a test, basically. For all you that are new, just try this. Like, if you're chanting your rounds and then, like, maybe just miss a day. I'm not saying to those who initiate, don't miss a day. Miss a day. And you notice, like, the effect of how dull your day is. It's like, I remember my first round of Hare Krishna when doing the mantra. I also thought, well, what is all this rubbish? I was used to be into all this other, like, meditation methods, all these kriyas and stuff. I thought that is complicated, so it must be substantial. It must be good stuff. Then I thought, I'll just give this Hare Krishna stuff. I'll give it a go. Yeah, these few rounds. I remember doing my first round on japa, and then I was outside. And I literally felt like someone put like HD goggles on me, and I could see everything so clearly. Like I said, everything becomes sweeter, deeper, and more meaningful. And now Krishna's in my life, and I can't push him away, even if I wanted to. The other day. So whatever situation you have, like I was saying, like whether your family, job, or responsibility, Krishna consciousness enhances it. And I think we can all agree, at least reflect on some moment in your life when everything began to improve and we can start practicing devotional service. Even in a short time, so many things began to flourish by Krishna's grace. So I'll say a few words. I was going to go through the purport, but it's too late now. I think I covered some stuff anyway, so it should be good. Joy. Okay. So we covered the three types of happiness. So happiness, ignorance is what? It's not true happiness. It's destruction. Happiness and passion is short-lived and leads to what? Pain. And happiness and goodness is peaceful but is limited. But what? Bhakti, pure devotional service, is eternal. Ever-increasing bliss. We want that. We want the eternal bliss, the good stuff. So basically what? If we want an end to all the stress, we must cultivate higher happiness to Krishna consciousness, which is beyond the modes of nature, and this is the ultimate purpose of human life. So I'll say these last words. Material happiness is like a drop of water, while Krishna consciousness is like the ocean. Why settle for the drop of the ocean? Why settle for a drop when the ocean is available? If we truly want to end all the stress, we must embrace the happiness that Krishna offers. Through loving service and devotion to Bhakti Yoga, through serving Krishna. So what I'll say today is basically, I just want to encourage you all to just take one step today, whether it's chanting more, reading more, serving more, or finding someone who strayed from Krishna consciousness and just reaching out and saying, Prabhu, how's it going? How's it going? This kind of thing. And you ultimately experience this higher, deeper, lasting happiness. And I'll leave on this quote that Srila Prabhupada said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. It doesn't stop there. Not later, right now. That is the true secret. Hare Krishna. I think it's starting. Gaurati's starting now, so I'll be quiet. Is there time for questions? There's no time for questions, but if you have any, you can speak to me. I don't mind. Yeah, private session with me, if you want. That is. No. Okay, Hare Krishna. We'll have Arti now. So please enjoy this grace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. Gauranga. Jai Hare Krishna.